What's up, guys? Jiraiya here, and I have a not so normal video today. We're gonna be going over what I did at San Diego Comic Con. Now, I'm a little late because, immediately getting back, there's a lot of things I still had to do, moving into this new house and all that good stuff. So, might be long, but deal with it. If you're here, you just got to do it, right? But we were there for the most part in San Diego 3 out of 5 days, because it's technically preview nights there. But we weren't there for preview night, and we didn't stay for Sunday. We thought about it, but it was like, it might be a little too much. Plus, we still got to drive home. But anyways, we drove over Wednesday night, went first thing in the morning, and guys, I just want to say, because San Diego Comic Con is what inspired me to, start making these kinds of videos, for all 60 something of you. But you know what? If you're here, again, you just got to deal with it. And it was just refreshing to be back. It's like going home, right? It's like, oh, I haven't been here in a while. Like, I'm so glad to be back, right? It's like one of the few times where me and the wife can actually enjoy the sheer amount of craziness and people that are there, despite, all the social anxiety and all that. Well, I don't have it as much, but like after a while, I just get pretty peopled out. At least that, quote unquote, that's how my wife likes to say it. And I'm like, yeah, totally agree. And it was just great seeing everything there, man. The festivities are always so fun. How they set up the entire like gas lamp district and all that stuff. The buildings all around. It's almost like being in nerdy Disneyland, and it's so fantastic. Fantastic Four, great movie, but that'll be another video. Anyways, so nothing crazy, but day one for sure. Obviously, we tried to get into what was it, the Avatar 20th anniversary panel. That was just not gonna happen. We got in first thing. We had to do a couple things before we went there, and it just did not work out time wise, and we weren't gonna stand in line all day. Man, I do, because we went last year. That was like the first panel we saw, and it was so fantastic. Can't speak highly enough of that, but missed out on that panel. But of the panels we did see, I think the funniest one was, I think it was called Worst Cartoons. Like, there was, I'm going to show the clip of some of the wild things we saw, because I couldn't tell you the names of these cartoons, but they were actually just almost out of pocket. There was like one where it was about like getting your kids fit, and the animation was just so blocky and weird. I hope I could find it, but it was wild.
Bro, what is going on? Whoa!
Let's get back to the ship now.
Yeah. It's not all thought out.
And that was definitely, for day one, that was like the most fun. Obviously, we were making our way all the way around, all the merchants, all the vendors in the exhibit hall. Saw just so much of all the things we wanted. And I'll show you some of my haul. Maybe the wife, I'll get a picture up of, all the stuff the wife got. But anyways, besides all that, like trying to get to panels, because day one, we didn't really see like too many panels. Babe, what was that? There was like a late panel you wanted to see on day one, right? What was that one?
Top of my head.
Yeah, because for the most part, like, as much as we enjoy the vendors and stuff, and seeing all the people, seeing all the events, we definitely like the like we're more panelists than anything now. But day one, like, just absorbing all of it is crazy, because I'm trying to remember a whole bunch of stuff. But anyways, now my big goal for day one was, hey, I'm getting signatures, baby. So I brought 3 comic books, right? It was Dark Knight's Metal #1, Absolute Batman #1, and Hush 2. And I wanted to get all those suckers signed. And on day one, I was actually lucky, because I didn't realize it, because, I'm a noob. But when I was trying to get some signatures, I realized, I literally ran into, I walked by his booth, but I was like, it was Alex Sinclair. I almost said Alexander Hamilton, but it was Alex Sinclair. He did the color art for Hush 2, and I was like, is it okay if I get your signature? And he was like, yeah, first one's free. So I got his signature, and I was like, oh man, now I gotta find all these other guys. Ran into Jeff Loeb at his little booth. He was like, yep, here you go, bud. And I was geeked. Like, every time I would meet writers, I was just so geeked. On the first day, I knew I probably wasn't going to get a chance to see the one guy I wanted to see, which was Scott Snyder, right? So I was like, all right, I'll try again tomorrow. And man, guys, the line for his stuff was insane because they just line everybody up. Everyone knows it's called LineCon. And I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to, like, they kept capping off the line, because what they'll do is they'll have like this big line and they'll cap it and they'll be like, hey, only this many people. If things free up, you might be able to get in line, but otherwise, like, don't come to this line if it says line cap. They'll tell you, like, to clear out and everything. So in between, we're just walking around the vendors and seeing all the stuff that we're eventually going to spend money on. And man, did we spend a good amount of money. In fact, here's the kind of things I spent my money on. I'll be right back. Now, as you know, as much as I am a Batman fan, even though I don't play with the minis, I am a Warhammer 40k fan, right? Got, little White Scar Terminator. I know they don't use that many Terminators, but I like Terminators. I like the White Scars. Okay, leave me alone. But obviously, I got a little chain sword, right? They had a couple of them as far as like the designs and stuff, but I was like, good old classic will do the job just nicely. And I decided to name him, right? This is one of my pride and joys amongst my other weapons. The other one's the Devil Sword Sparta, but this just has a nice simple name. This, everybody, is Roar. Meet Roar. He's wonderful. He's amazing. I probably, point him at my wife like every other day, but you know what? That's not important. Anyways, I also got a bolter, but I'm not going to show that just for the sake of YouTube and, guns and stuff, but it's also fantastic. And I also point that at her on a daily basis. She hates it. I don't really care because, you know what? Sweetheart, you married me. You ain't gonna do nothing about it. I'm not gonna look at her. She's like right behind the camera and I'm terrified. But if I don't move and I don't look at her, she won't know I'm there. I think it's working. Anyways, day 2. So day 2 was definitely like our shopping day, right? Because that's where we got like the most stuff. Got a whole bunch of stickers, bought a couple comics and graphic novels. But like there were just weirdly enough, there were just no interesting panels on day 2 for us, or on that Friday, right? Like I think we attended one panel, and even though it was the one, it was actually a great panel. It was heroes versus villains, and it was a bunch of writers and comic illustrators just talking about like, hey, like what makes an evil villain, what makes a good hero, like what's an anti-hero, all that stuff. And as good as it was, I did fall asleep because I was absolutely gassed out. Because every morning that we were in San Diego, I ran like 4 or 5 miles in the morning and then proceeded to go do a bunch of stuff at Comic-Con. So that day I was just like gassed out. So I had to and I had like a massive headache. So I like took the time to maybe nap a little, and it was fine, but I still woke up with enough time to enjoy the rest of the panel, and it was fantastic because they were talking about, hey, who are some interesting characters? Like I know they had a big discourse about Supergirl, because I think the Supergirl, or like one of the Supergirl writers was there. Nick Dragata was there. And it was just a fun time, right? Nice, easy panel, but again, not the highlight of the trip for me. For me, it was day number 3. Oh, well, I guess I did get signatures on day number 2, right? I got my signatures from Scott Snyder on day 2. I got Nick Dragata on day 3, so I did get all 3 comics signed. But anyways, moving on to day 3. That started off hot for me. So I lined up for the DC Metropolis and Beyond panel, right? Immediately after that was the DC Gotham panel. So I was basically sitting down for like a third of the con that day, and it was fantastic. All the reveals they were showing, I'm not even a Superman fan, obviously, right? Because I got mostly Batman stuff. I'm wearing a Batman t-shirt, yada, 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 blah, 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 blah. But even especially after the Superman movie, if you watch my video on Superman, you guys know how I feel about it. It was fantastic, if you didn't already know. And even I was like, man, I even if I don't pick up all the new stuff that's coming out in current continuity, it's like I gotta pick up some classic Superman comics. So I made that a mission of mine. I kind of failed already because I went comic book shopping like yesterday and got a whole bunch of stuff, and I had a Superman. I think I had All-Star Superman in my hands, but I was like, ooh, there's some other interesting stuff. So I'm gonna get that, and I'm gonna come back because All-Star Superman's always gonna be there, especially now they have these pocket-sized versions of the graphic novel. So I'm going to get it. I will get it. I'm going to read it. Anyways. But they showed all the new stuff, like, spoiler alert, Superboy Prime is coming back. They were talking about DCKO. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make that on day 2, or on day 1, all the major DC reveals, like DCKO, all that good stuff. But I did hear about it, so... I'm not going to talk about it too much because I didn't get to go, so I wouldn't know what that experience was like. But anyways, they were talking about, okay, here's a couple Superman stories. Like, I think one is like the book of the House of L. And I was like, oh, okay, like, at some point when I catch up in continuity, both with Superman, Justice League, and Batman, I definitely got to check this out. But one of the interesting things about it was, like, they were talking about the movies, all that good stuff. And I was just like, man, like... It's really, I bet it's really a good time to be a Superman fan, like a true, someone who's as big of a Batman fan, let me repeat, someone who's as big a Superman fan as I am a Batman fan. I bet it's a fantastic time being a fan. You know what I'm saying? Like, that movie was just so great, and then they had so many releases coming out. I couldn't be more excited for them. But what I was really excited for was the DC Gotham panel, where, man, I was seeing so much stuff. Surprisingly, they didn't talk a whole bunch about Absolute Batman, but that's fine because I knew, not a majority of what was going to happen, but I just knew, like, oh, it's going to be good. I don't even need to see what you're doing, because what they're doing right now is, honestly, I think it's better, or at least more interesting to a certain degree than the current main continuity. But that's to be discussed and to be debated by whoever wants to debate it. Whatever. That's not why I'm here. But anyways, for me, the most interesting, / unique thing was definitely they're coming out with Immortal Legend Batman. It's basically Batman and the boys, Robin, Nightwing, as Power Ranger versions of themselves, right? And we got to see some of the cool artwork from that, and I thought that was super dope. I don't know if I'm going to pick it up. I might pick up like a #1 issue just to see what it's all about, or at least read it online. But it was definitely like a little funky, a little weird, but I was like, okay, cool. A little campy. Again, that's what comic books are all about. But the other thing was Batman's Second Night, I think it was what it was called. Because obviously Batman First Night, or Night 1, whatever it is. It's Batman in the 20s, or no, in the 40s late 30s, just as World War II starting out. I thought that was pretty interesting. I'm curious to see where they go, because definitely more noir, a little less fantastical, definitely a more grounded version, very similar to like original Batman with the purple gloves. He had the more bat-like ears, like they're a little bit wider out, going up to the top. So that was definitely like the art, the visuals for that was fantastic. So I'm really curious to see how that one goes. But the thing that got me super, super excited, right, is Matt Fraction's Batman #1. And I have been seeing like previews about this all over the internet, and I just could not figure out. I was like, hey, are they like rebooting the DC continuity? Are they rebooting Batman? And I was like, oh, okay. So I had to look it up. But essentially it's, going to take place after Hush 2, which I still need to catch up on, even though I have a copy of #1 right on my wall. And I was like, oh, man, all this stuff looks great. Because they were talking about George Jimenez. His artwork is fantastic. They were showing, hey, we're going to do some different things, but we're keeping Batman at his core, this, fairly, rooted to his core, I guess, right? They're bringing back a little bit of the blue suit. It looks it's a little sleeker, a little cooler. Icon's a little bit broader, right? It's like a mix of old, blue and gray Batman along with a little bit of Hush Batman, and I'm loving it. It might end up being my favorite suit going forward, so I'm excited for that. I'm absolutely rushing to catch up on current continuity, because I've just been reading Absolute Batman, a lot of one-shots, a lot of Elseworld type stuff, Black Label type stuff, and now it's like, all right, I got to catch up because I want to understand what's going on in Batman #1 with Matt Fraction, right? And that just had me so excited. The other thing, I think there was like one more thing. It was more, I didn't see this in the actual panel, but I know it was talked about in the DC All In panel, where they were talking about Batman. I want to just say, I'm just going to call it Batman KO until, or no, Batman Knighthood or something, Batman Knight. And it's essentially Batman facing off against Robins who have taken up the mantle of the Batman, right? And I was like, ooh, what kind of trauma are we going to see here? What kind of horrible exchanges are we going to see? I'm curious. I'm loving it. I'm hoping it's kind of like a battle for the cowl situation, except with Batman actually around to kind of hear all the insults of like, oh, I'm Batman. No, you're Batman. I'm Batman. Blah, 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 blah. But anyways, moving on. Later that day, as I was waiting in line for signatures for, I believe it was Nick Dragata, I was talking to some guys in line. They were like, oh, are you going to get your stuff signed by Jim Lee? For those of you who don't know, Jim Lee is the DC president. He's also the reason why I'm going to go ahead and say, like, he obviously illustrated Hush, right? And he's kind of, in my opinion, the standard for the modern appearance of Batman. Now, with that being said, right, I also did not actually expect to even see him this con, because everyone was talking about where is he, what's he doing, and to get in line, you had to get like a specific ticket, you had to pay for like a certain comic before you could even go and get your stuff signed by him. So I was not going to do that, but the guy in line mentioned, he was like, oh, they have a panel called Jim Lee and Friends later in the night, and I was like, I expect that one to be very filled up because I had waited like a good amount of time for the DC panels earlier in the day. So I was like, I don't know if I want to wait, but we'll see how things pan out. My wife saw a couple panels on her own. We were doing a little bit of shopping, but something that surprised us was the panel that was happening before Jim Lee and Friends, which was the X-Men 25th anniversary panel, where they were talking about like the original X-Men movie. Was like, there was like no line to get in, and it's a massive room. If you haven't been to Comic-Con, it's a massive room that they let you into, right? And we're like, oh, let's see what happens, right? Let's go in here, let's wait a little bit. And man, it was worth it, because that was actually a great panel to watch, because you saw all the behind the scenes stuff. You see the little scene where the guy dressed up as Spider-Man shows up in the scene. But it was one of those moments where it's like, you almost forget how truly significant that movie was to modern day superhero movies, right? Without the 2000 like original X-Men movie, without Spider-Man in 2002, I don't think we have superhero movies as we know them, right? So it was a good, like, humble look back into the past, and just seeing, I was like, man, like it really took a lot of fans and a lot of good nerds and a lot of passionate people to like bring this to fruition, because we wouldn't have the MCU at the very least. And even if you're not an MCU fan as I like, as a standard Marvel fan, because I'm not a huge MCU fan. I like the movies, but I'm not a huge fan of it. As far as like, oh, I don't need to go out of my way to go see these movies. I understand the significance it has to both Marvel and DC Comics, right? But anyways, moving on from that, Jim Lee panel happens right after, and the wife says, hey, let's go move forward. We can get really, really close. And I'm telling you, I was a stone's throw away from Jim Lee. When he walked in the room went crazy. He's talking about, the Supergirl comics, the Superman movie. I'm just so happy. And he's talking a little bit about like, what they're doing in current Superman and Supergirl continuity. They brought out a couple writers. They brought out Tom King, who, if you guys haven't read Batman Rebirth, Tom King, good job on that. I'm not a huge fan of like, kind of like all the weird dialogue, but that's just me. Anyways, so one thing we didn't expect, right? Because we hadn't seen anybody of like great significance as far as the movies are concerned. And then Jim Lee, as he's talking about Supergirl, he's talking to the writers, talking to, to the illustrators and all that. He's like, let me introduce you guys to my good friend, producer, director, comic book fan. And he says, James Gunn. And when if you thought people went crazy for Jim Lee, when James Gunn walked in the room, I like almost peed my pants. Like, I was so geeked out. I was like, I can't believe I'm in the same room with James Gunn. Like, I was fanboying so hard. My wife was probably looking at me like, oh my God, like, yeah, it's exciting, but like, you might want to calm down. I'm like, babe, don't say that in front of James, okay? We got a thing, okay? But anyways, he was just talking about how much fun it was to watch and to grow up as a fan. He talked a little bit about his dad and their relationship, and like when his dad first took him to Comic-Con, I think it was in like Chicago or something like that, and it inspired him moving forward. And the interesting thing about it was like both him and Jim Lee apparently grew up in St. Louis together, like not together, but like they grew up in the same city, had very similar circumstances. And, I think it was cool because James Gunn just talked about how being a fan, like, inspired him to go do the things that he really loved. And he was like, hey, like, everybody should take their, shoot their shot, essentially, because comics are for everybody, right? And it's not just that, but, like, the importance of comics the thing I got out of it was, like, I've always known comics were going to play a huge part in my life, whether it was like directly or indirectly. Obviously indirectly, like, my inspirations, all that, more directly when it comes to this kind of stuff. Again, I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but it was just such an exciting event. But he was just, going on about all that. And I just thought, man, like, this guy really gets it. Like, talk about a true champion of the fans, a true champion for comic books, right? Making this new Superman, making this new DC universe. And, again, like, I talked about it a little bit in my Superman movie review, but because he was like, the brain behind it, the mastermind behind the Superman movie, right? I almost want to thank him because seeing that movie made me want to be a better person, right? When I see Batman, like, he makes me want to like kick people's asses, but Superman makes me want to be a better guy, right? And when I see the efforts James Gunn has put into his current DC universe, right, I'm just like, man, like, he makes me want to be a better person. He makes me excited to be a comic book fan once again, right? And for me, even being a grown man, being a grown adult, not to say that you can't be a fan as a grown adult, but like sometimes we all just need a little bit of inspiration. It doesn't matter if I'm gonna, you're gonna go into the creative fields or not. It's nice to know that, the art that he's putting out or that he's helping facilitate, that's going out to people all over the world, is not just more, dark, brooding. As much as I love that stuff, it's refreshing to see kindness be cool again, because that's super punk rock, right? But yeah, he was just, again, what a champion of comic books. Like, if I could give him a round of applause again, I absolutely would. So thank you, James Gunn. I know you'll never see this, but I appreciate what you are currently doing for comic books and movies and fans. Now, that being said,
and it's nice to have something that is all ages that creates the next generation.
I think, everybody loves these characters. You love DC, as much as I do, and it's great to be able to create stuff for adults,
right,
for kids, for families, for women, for men, just give something for everybody. And that's part of what is so exciting about creating this DCU, is being able to create all these interconnected stories that are still for very, different kinds of groups of people.
Fantastic.
And everybody should be represented. So
yeah. And maybe there are two kids in St. Louis watching it, like they're 10 or 12 years old, that someday will be up on here talking about their next film project. Anyway, thank you, Jay.
Yeah!
That was basically as cool as it was gonna get, right? After that, like, we just packed up and went home. We had gotten all the gear, seen all the things, did all the things, and what a fun time, right? I know this was just not a normal video. I'm not actually gonna put like too much edits. I'm just gonna throw like a bunch of the pictures we took, some of the videos I took. But again, like, crowded, insane, totally worth the time, right? Got to talk a little bit with Scott Snyder, a little bit with Jeff Loeb, right? I will say, Scott Snyder did tell me a little like interesting story about the Dark Knight's metal cover. And he was like, yeah, like Greg Capullo really championed this cover because they didn't want to publish this cover. And he was like, you guys need to do this, and that. And I thought that was just like a cool little moment that I got to have like with Scott Snyder, you know what I mean? Because I'm such a huge fan. Scott Snyder, you're the GOAT. I love you. I'd give you a hug if I could. I mean, you wouldn't want one from me because I probably hug you too hard and I'm sweaty. So, you know, I'm just a sweaty little nerd. But anyways, I did... The last thing I will say is, like, I did have this other moment with him where I told him, was like, you know, when I stopped reading comic books, I think it was in like 2016 or 2017. Not because like I wasn't happy with what I was reading. It was one of those things I put down and I just never picked back up for a while until, you know, Comic-Con of last year. And I've just been into it nonstop. But I told him, you know, Dark Knight's Metal was like one of the last things I read. And I absolutely loved it. And then I put comic books down and I went to go do adult things. But I told him, like, hey, like, between Comic-Con and Absolute Batman #1, those are the things that brought me back into comics, brought me back into the fandom. And I feel like I'm a much happier person for it, right? It's not that, like, oh, these are the only things that are keeping me sane. It's just that I've gone through a lot in the last year. Not necessarily anything like traumatizing or anything. Like, nobody died. My wife is, you know, doing great. You know, I mean, I'm doing great. My wife is just dealing with me. So there's that. But anyways, it's just given me a fun outlook, a fun, you know, way to cope and just to spend my time, right? Because my wife would be like, "Ooh, what are you reading? Like, what's going on? This, and that." Right. Sometimes she'll even buy comic books for me. If you could see like my feet, I'd be doing like the little But, you know, she understands it's something that helps me stay happy, keeps me happy, all that good stuff. So I told Scott Snyder, I was like, hey, like, Absolute Batman is one of those things that brought me back into comics, and I couldn't be more excited to be a fan. And I just want to keep going forward and be a fan. I want my kids to be fans. I want my family to be fans. Everything. Like, I just want to talk about it all the time, and I don't care who knows it. But anyways, guys, if you guys were at Comic-Con, like, let me know, you know, what you guys thought. What panels did you guys see? Because obviously I was, like, clearly at all the DC ones. They did also give us some free merch at the DC panel, so I thought that was pretty cool. I got some pins that I will cherish for the rest of my life, some preview comics, and yeah, it was a great run. You know, lots of money spent, lots of cool things seen, lots of pictures taken. Right. Again, you know, Roar here is going to keep me company for a long time. But anyways, if you were at San Diego Comic-Con 2025, let me know, you know, how your experience was. What was it like for you? Would you guys enjoy? What were some exclusives that you guys picked up? Some deals you got? Cool people you saw? Cool cosplays? Oh, if you guys didn't see the Galactus cosplay, we actually saw them dressing up, and I thought that was insane. Insane. Because that person needed to basically get on those stilts to get into that Galactus cosplay. So the fact that I saw it behind the scenes was pretty crazy. But again, let me know in the comments down below. I know this is not a typical video of mine. I'm just kind of rambling because I just wanted to talk about my experience, right? You'll see all the stuff when I post it in the video, all the edits and that good stuff. But again, guys, for me, San Diego Comic-Con is like a home away from home, and I can't wait for 2026. Hopefully by then I'll actually be better at making videos. We'll see, right? All this is a skill, and I just need to get better at it. But anyways, guys, like, share, and subscribe. Oh, and if you get a chance, check out my Fantastic Four video that will be coming out basically right after, if not at the same time as this video. So check that one out. I have a lot of interesting things to say about it. So check you guys later. Like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment down below, and I will see you in the next video. Jiraiya, out.